By now, it's finally sunk in that 2001's Josie and the Pussycats is a movie that got a raw deal. A fact that makes my inner 20-something jump for joy because I saw the movie in theaters and loved it from the very start.
What? No, it's only 30 years old. I remember seeing this in theaters.
But at the time, it was not only a box office flop, but also the favorite punching bag of movie critics and a punchline for anybody who needed a nice, misogynistic zinger without seeming too misogynistic. In a world in which movie criticism and the film community were controlled by elderly white guys, all with serious college degrees, anything that was intended for young girls to enjoy was unworthy of consideration. And so the clever combination of slapstick comedy and social satire went unnoticed until it started to build an internet following in 2009. Today, it's recognized as a pop art feminist classic, although it comes a little late for its 3 stars, who all deserved much better careers. And yes, I am aware Rosario Dawson has had one hell of a career. She still deserved a better one. But we're not really talking about Josie and the Pussycats today. We will, fairly soon. But for today, another movie that came just 4 years earlier still deserves a second look itself. One that, on its launch, Josie and the Pussycats could not avoid. No less a critic than Roger Ebert himself drew the comparison when he gave Josie and the Pussycats 1/2 of a star out of 4, the exact same rating he had given Spice World, saying, Josie and the Pussycats are not dumber than the Spice Girls, but they're as dumb as the Spice Girls, which is dumb enough. I love Ebert, but he had a tendency to show his stuffy old white guy side at the worst of times. Today we're talking about Spice World, the Spice Girls movie of 1997, a forgotten pop music masterpiece, at least here in the United States. And of course my costume department says she has exactly the right thing for the occasion.
It's incredible! It's expensive!
That's my costume designer. She knows what I'm into, and she knows I'm totally a ginger.
Not necessarily.
Girl power. Spice up your life. That's so expensive. In the early 1990s, Chris Herbert approached his father Bob, a successful music talent manager, and asked for advice in setting up his own management company. The father-son team would open up Heart Management, and as their first project, they wanted a group to compete with the boy bands that dominated the UK music scene of the time. The group had to stand out, and their solution to that was simple. Girls. So when you have a specific image you want your pop band to reflect, you can do 2 things. You can hit the pavement, searching for that most magical of unicorns, a band with a sound that will hit, and the specific look you have in mind, or you can do what the producers of the preeminent manufactured pop band The Monkees did, and run an ad in the papers. This was the original ad that brought the Monkees together. The ad for the group with the working title Touch was a little wordier. Wanted, are you 18 to 23 with the ability to sing/dance? Are you streetwise, outgoing, ambitious, and dedicated? Heart Management Limited are a widely successful music industry management consortium currently forming a choreographed, singing, dancing, all-female pop act for a recording deal. Open audition, Danceworks, 16 Balderton Street, Friday, 4th of March, 11 a.m. to 5:30 p.m. Please bring sheet music or backing cassette. It may not be as organic or as legendary sounding as our group formed in the crucible of the London pub scene, bound together by our love of obscure American blues guitarists, but many bands have some level of packaging and manufacturing before they hit it big. Just ask Ringo Starr. Or better yet, ask Pete Best. Over the course of weeks, Bob and Chris auditioned more than 400 women, whittling down the second round to just over a dozen auditionees, including Victoria Adams, Melanie Brown, Melanie Chisholm, and Michelle Stevenson. Also in the mix was model, actress, and singer Geri Halliwell, who had managed to talk her way into the callbacks even though she had missed the first round due to a severe sunburn. That's the power of spice. The five would make up the final roster of Touch after performing Signed, Sealed, Delivered, I'm Yours as an ensemble in their final audition for the group. Determined that their new girl group should have the same chemistry as a group that had come up together through the indie scene, Heart Management moved all five of the young women into a 3-bedroom house where they would live together while working on their demos with Michael Sparks and Tim Hawes, while also working out their own choreography. The group didn't gel right away. The members of the group weren't happy with the initial songs that they were working on, complaining that the sound was too young for their act. And after the first couple of months, the Herberts dismissed original group member Michelle Stevenson for what they called a lack of commitment, although Stevenson would later tell Channel 4 that they also told her she looked too old compared to the other girls. Stevenson would go on to become a presenter for ITV and part of the songwriting trio She Songs, as well as becoming a sought-after session backup singer working in the studio with Ricky Martin and Julio Iglesias. Touch, meanwhile, would fill the Stevenson-shaped hole in their roster with Sylvia Young theater school graduate and former EastEnders guest star Emma Lee Bunton, who was recommended to the Herberts by the group's vocal coach, Pepe Lemer.
Once again, please. That was absolutely perfect without being actually any good. Once again then.
The fledgling group would continue working on their dance, their sound, and their chemistry. As part of their training, they took songwriting lessons from Richard Biff Frederick Stannard, who with his company Biffco, as of this date, has written 41 hit singles, including 9 number ones. It was in one of these group songwriting sessions that the members of Touch wrote Sugar and Spice, from which they would draw their new name, the Spice Girls. In 1994, the members of the group finally persuaded the Herberts that they were ready for an industry tryout. The response was overwhelmingly positive, and with record labels knocking at the door, Heart Management suddenly decided they didn't have their group locked down as tightly as they would like. They presented the Spice Girls with new contracts, and all 5 members refused to sign. By 1995, the Spice Girls had fired Heart Management, saying that the father-son team refused to take their contributions to the group's direction seriously. Apparently, the whole let's build real rock band chemistry experiment worked really well. The split was less than amicable, with the group reportedly stealing the master recordings of their first album In Progress out of the Heart offices. By 1995, they had written most of the songs that would make up their debut album and signed with Simon Fuller as their new manager. And shortly after, they would sign their recording contract with Virgin Records.
Oh, Brian, they've got this great song, right? Do it for him, girls.
Nah, he's not interested.
Of course he is. You are interested, aren't you, Brian?
Yes, you are. Come on, sit down and shut up and listen, because we're going to do it anyway.
Yeah,
Come on, let's go. Ready? 1, 2, 3, hit it!
With a massive wave of industry hype behind them, the Spice Girls released Wannabe as the first single off their album on the 7th of July, 1996 in the United Kingdom, and the song became an instant hit. And the Spice Girls' carefully curated image of rebellion was snapped up by the music press. While they would frequently be assailed at the time as pseudo-feminist or feminist for publicity, the fact is that their group presented an image of exuberance that was just not common for girl acts at the time. A brash, take-no-prisoners approach to sheer joy that had previously been reserved almost exclusively for male musicians, with even early pop champions of female sexual liberation like Madonna having to present themselves as stern, serious artists. The Spice Girls were having fun, and when you're not a straight-passing, white, cisgendered male in the entertainment industry, openly having fun is, in itself, a revolutionary act. Wannabe would spend 7 weeks in the number 1 slot in the UK pop charts before going on to chart in the top slot in 37 countries worldwide. In the United States, it would spend 4 weeks at the top of the Billboard Hot 100 and would set records as both the best-selling debut single by an all-female group and the best-selling single by an all-female group of all time. With a wave of consecutive hits coming in after Wannabe, the press started to refer to Spice Mania, reflecting the fact that the Spice Girls were officially the fastest-selling musical act from the UK since the Beatles.
But you do like boys, don't you, Jerry?
Come on, is the Pope a Catholic?
Apparently he is, yes.
Here at home, church leaders have reacted with shock today to reports that the Spice Girls have cast doubt on the religious conviction of the Pope.
With Simon Fuller heading up the business end of things, the girls took advantage of the moment and were marketed to the hilt, appearing in commercials for Pepsi, Cadbury, and Polaroid, among many others. Their public appearances were constant, and their looks were iconic, with Harper's Bazaar saying that Jerry Halliwell's Union Jack mini dress had gone down in history, along with Liz Hurley's safety pin frock and Princess Diana's revenge gown. The spice must flow. My name is a killing word. So it should come as no surprise that the idea for a movie starring the girls was floated mere weeks after their first single hit the airwaves.
This is what our movie should be about. They're young, they're cute, they're hip, they're wacky.
Yeah, but can they act?
What act? Did anyone care if Marilyn Monroe could act? All they cared was she in focus.
Reportedly, Disney was the first to come calling, trying to shop a script in which one of the girls would be the daughter of a single mother who was struggling to overcome hardship so that the band could have the opportunities it needed to succeed. And that's how the Spice Girls wound up turning down a movie offer from one of the most powerful film companies in the history of entertainment. Instead, Simon Fuller handed off the writing of a screenplay to his brother, Kim. That would be Kim Fuller, former writer for Not the 9 O'Clock News, Alias Smith & Jones, The Lenny Henry Show, Spitting Image, and The Tracy Ullman Show, and who had also co-written the concert film Lenny Live and Unleashed with comedian Lenny Henry. So while he may have been Simon Fuller's brother, he also had just the resume they were looking for. As the profile of the Spice Girls grew and word about the movie got around, Kim Fuller says that he was constantly being called on to expand the screenplay. It seems that an awful lot of England's celebrity set were calling and asking for an opportunity to cameo in the film. Although many would later say that, no, they weren't fans of the group. Oh no, it was their nephews and nieces who were fans, and for whom they totally wanted to get autographs. By the way, Richard E. Grant's nephews are all surprisingly named Richard E. Grant, and each reportedly asked for the inscription, "We totally loved you in L.A. story, it's a little recognized comedy masterpiece." With Richard O'Brien playing the shady paparazzi who feeds Spice Girls photos and scandals to the tabloid press, it's no surprise that the movie is drenched in tabloid celebrity references, which caused some moments of trouble. For instance, references to both Princess Diana and Gianni Versace had to be cut from the movie at the last moment, following their deaths, which had occurred between the first edits of the movie and the premiere. And Gary Glitter's cameo wound up on the editing room floor after he was arrested, although the girls still sang his song "I'm the Leader of the Gang" in one of my absolute favorite scenes.
Then there's Buzz, Woody, the alien, and then I've got a fluffy pink hot water bottle. So there's just not enough room for you, mate. Ooh.
Filmed in just 2 months on a total budget of roughly $25 million, the movie uses the Spice Girls' second album as its primary soundtrack. That album had not actually been written or recorded when filming began, so the girls were simultaneously working on the album and filming their roles in the movie. The first single from the movie, Too Much, became the Spice Girls' second consecutive Christmas #1 single in the UK, also making them the first UK act to reach #1 with their first 6 consecutive singles. In the United States, there's a strange sort of mythology around this movie that it was some kind of horrible box office bomb. I probably don't have to tell anybody in the UK this, but it really wasn't. Its debut in the United Kingdom was a record-setting £6.8 million in its first weekend, while in the US it set a record for highest weekend debut over a Super Bowl weekend with a take of just over $10 million. The movie alone brought in $100 million worldwide, making it a comfortable financial success, and that's before you even factor in the sales for the Spice Girls' second album, Spice World, which, as I mentioned, was also the movie's soundtrack. If there are people who remember Spice World as a flop, it's probably because they remember the critical response to the movie, which was absolutely savage. Appearing on Siskel and Ebert, Roger Ebert proclaimed the film to be an entertainment-free dead zone, saying about the Spice Girls themselves, "They're so detached they can't even successfully lip-sync their own songs." Throughout the remainder of the year, he would use Spice World as a punchline for his negative reviews, including pointing out in his year-end review that he would have awarded it the worst movie of the year, if not for the fact that 1998 also saw the release of Michael Bay's Armageddon. Paul Tadera for CNN wrote, "What's the plot, you may be asking? Well, so am I." Ian Nathan for Empire Magazine said, attempting to embellish the Spice Girls with the lightly fantastical cum satirical Beatles movie vibe, Bob Spears manages only to lamely reiterate that the only phenomena hereabouts is one of packaging.
And I sort of just talk all the time. It doesn't even need to make sense. Just noises are fine.
While the US Today's Mike Clark wrote, "Can the Spice Girls act beyond their assigned personas? World doesn't stop spinning long enough to answer." It would win the Golden Raspberry Award that year for Worst Actress for The Spice Girls, and would also be nominated for Worst Screenplay and Worst Picture, as well as a nomination for Roger Moore as Worst Supporting Actor, which I really don't know what some people have against fun.
Remember, the drummer who is without sticks has no backbeat.
Absolutely.
Right, Puss?
What did he say?
I haven't a clue. But I know that he's right.
Actually, I guess I do know what some people have against fun. They want people to share their very distinct idea of it. Silly, peppy, and unabashedly weird, Spice World isn't a movie that can be viewed in comparison with Kevin Smith indies or Oscar-winning dramas. It's not that kind of movie. Ironically, the kind of movie it is, well, a rock and roll movie. And I say it's ironic because the most common complaint about Spice World, after it doesn't look like anything else at the box office, was that it ripped off A Hard Day's Night. It's a charge that's still being levied against it today, even as more critics are It's a charge that's still being levied against it today, even as more critics are looking back on it fondly. It's weird to accuse Spice World of ripping off A Hard Day's Night because we don't accuse every horror movie of ripping off Dracula or The Cabinet of Dr. Caligari. We don't accuse every science fiction movie of ripping off Georges Méliès's A Trip to the Moon. A Hard Day's Night is not a singular movie that has always been the only one of its kind. Instead, it was the flashpoint of an entire subgenre of musical comedy film, a genre that not only includes other Beatles movies like Help, Yellow Submarine, or The Magical Mystery Tour, but also multiple movies featuring Herman's Hermits, Having a Wild Weekend with the Dave Clark Five, and movies that folded in multiple bands like When the Boys Meet the Girls. And then there's The Monkees, both the television series and their own misjudged movie that would only be recognized for its genius later, 1968's Head. It's a genre that is marked by camp and excess and just plain weirdness. It's like you guys have spent a long, hard year out on the road, appearing at podunk radio stations and touring from town to town. Have a little fun, as a treat. And sometimes the treat is also for us. And as for A Hard Day's Night, the comparison is valid in more than just format. That movie itself was a quick $500,000 comedy that was knocked out in just a few weeks of filming, and that was primarily intended to sell albums, not tickets. In fact, internal documentation from United Artists shows that executives were expecting the movie to be a huge bomb at the box office. All they cared about was a contractual loophole that would allow them to cash in off of a soundtrack album, which they thought they had to rush to stores before the whole rock and roll fad ended. When it wound up bringing in more than $8 million, it surprised everyone involved, and its modern place in the pantheon of film is largely thanks to the fact that the Beatles fans who made it a success as young rock fans grew up to become stuffy old white guys who would write their own articles, books, and documentaries about how important the movie was, regardless of how adults felt about it at the time. In the subgenre of rock movie musicals, Spice World is an excellent example of the genre, one of the best to be produced since The Beatles, and it's unique among such movies in that it stars a group of young women getting up to exactly the kind of shenanigans that young men always get up to in this genre. And the movie turns on the idea that, whatever their pop commodity status, they are young women, deserving of private lives, friendships, and having fun, as well as working hard. They are deserving of being taken seriously as people, even as they live the most absurd lives of all time. Having fun is a revolutionary act, and Spice World was one of the last great examples of rock revolution on the screen. You know, the late 90s and the early 2000s were this great period in American entertainment history of just camp and out-and-out strangeness. And looking back on what a lot of the critics had to say about that time, there were clearly a lot of very angry old white men who were upset at having to live through all of that fun. Roger Moore reportedly did not know who the Spice Girls were when he was approached to be in the movie, but he agreed because after meeting them, he found them to be very charming, especially Victoria Beckham, who asked him for his autograph. Hey, Roger Moore knew what he was about. What's your favorite rock movie? Drop down into the comments and let me know, or tell me what your favorite Spice Girls song is. I'm a say you'll be there kind of guy myself. And if you've made it this far in the video, try to work the word ginger into your comment as our special code word for the Cool Kids Club. Bonus points if you use all 5 of the Spice Girls code names. For the record, those are Ginger, Baby, Sporty, Scary, Posh, Dopey, and Doc. Wait. No, yeah, that's right. Until next time, watch like it means something. Girl power, buy my yoga DVD. I don't know why my Ginger Spice sounds more like Jazza.